So for those of you that clicked on the video, the name of the manhwa is called Sweet Home. It's made by the same author who created the last work that I did like a 54-second review on. If you want my full like 5-minute thoughts on that series, let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you are new, you might as well subscribe and like the video. But what I will say is, even though for me, Bastard along with The Gray Man were the best reads I had the last 2 to 3 months, that all changed when I read and finished Sweet Home. It's about 140 chapters of non-stop amazingness. The premise of Sweet Home is we start off with this kid called Yun. I think it's pronounced Yun. It's Hyun, but I'm pretty sure the H is silent. If I'm wrong, forgive me. But Yun essentially is a shut-in, somebody who lives off of the internet, probably something that's very common in today's society, but he's a shut-in to the extreme. Due to bad experiences at school, he refuses to go to school and in fact is suicidal as well. The manhwa in fact showing the scars on his wrist from his attempted suicide. So just from the get-go, it should be pretty obvious that this isn't a lighthearted story. He's somebody who treats his own family wrong because he feels like his family is embarrassed of him, and so he has a little resentment and hatred for the outside world, hence why he likes to stay in his room alone. However, all of that changes when his family dies in a car accident and he has to move into an apartment all by himself. Now, this seems like a pretty dark slice of life type story. However, it all changes when it turns out that he lost his family during a zombie apocalypse, or well, a monster apocalypse more so than that. Essentially, he lost his family at the end of the world, and now his journey as a character and as a human being is, ironically, even though he always wanted to stay inside, it's escaping the new apartment building he lives into to escape into the outside. It's truly a beautiful irony that the story only builds on top of more and more and more. And so I'll say this right now, Yun for me is easily one of the greatest protagonists I've been able to read and encounter, and truly magnificent in terms of character development. Something you'll see throughout the series as he continues. He's somebody that you might hate or maybe even relate to at the beginning, but then slowly as the story goes on, regardless on what side you started on, you're gonna end up loving his character. I can pretty much guarantee it. So since this is a zombie apocalypse survivor thriller type series, it has all of the things you would expect from it. However, in this format, the author is really capable, just like he was in his previous work, to build up tension, suspense, really have you want to read the next chapter and not stop. And in comparison to the author's last work, I would say this one has a much bigger cast and a cast that you fall in love with. And well, let's just say if you're not already jaded by stories that do this, you're gonna possibly get heartbroken and cry a bit. Even at the end of this story, despite me, again, possibly being jaded almost as much as anybody else by these stories, it was still able to pull on some heartstrings of mine. So I think it's almost impossible to go throughout this series without falling in love with at least 2 or 3 characters that you want to see survive to the end. Now, what I truly do love about this series is the overall threat with the monsters and the whole zombie apocalypse, if you want to call it, and all of the different issues and character flaws every single character throughout the cast has, is shown in a very introspective manner, where the character has to come into terms with their desire and sometimes reject their desire in order to not become a monster, or accept their desire and become a monster. And that's something that's really impressive for this type of series. Many times during these zombie type stuff, many of the characters don't seem to be logical. A lot of the decisions they make don't really seem to make sense at all and are only there for the convenience of the plot. Not to say that that doesn't happen here. Every story has their plot conveniences that you have to accept, but with Sweet Home, each member of the cast truly feels like a human being, whether it be a good human being, a great human being, innocent, naive, or just a terrible scumbag. But this series truly has it all. Characters you can connect with, a phenomenal protagonist, amazing action, beautiful suspense, good artwork, at least for the medium of manhwa, I would say. It also has its comedy moments, and it's one of the most satisfying series you can read. I think after reading these 140 chapters, you'll truly feel satisfied with the closure which happens. And honestly, even though that's not unique to Sweet Home, many stories like this, I would say, that are so suspense-filled at times can feel open-ended, being that yes, there are closures and conclusions, but yet not everything feels wrapped up. And even though Sweet Home doesn't have everything wrapped up, everything that is important feels wrapped up and is satisfying. Characters go through their developments, their ends, we find out backstories. All of these things kind of piece and work together to create the story of Sweet Home and drive the narrative forward. And maybe this is just me, but for a story that's 140 chapters and is relatively quick to read, again, not as quick as the 94 chapters that is Bastard, this story still feels like it's 400 chapters, but in 140 chapters. Like, the amount of material, the amount of stuff that happens and that goes on in the story is so much and yet such little time by comparison. And so essentially, this really feels like a story that I've known for over a decade now, but I've only been reading for a few days, and for it to have such a strong emotional connection with me is insane. And I know I mentioned this point earlier, but this all really leads back to the protagonist, seeing how he set a date for which he wanted to commit suicide, and then his goal is to live and survive. Is simple but effective. I truly hope that you check it out, and I hope that the protagonist Yoon can serve as inspiration and maybe as some sort of motivation for maybe people who are going through similar sentiments that he displays at the beginning. However, though, I don't think that a fictional story can constitute or replace professional help. So if you are somebody who's going through, again, similar emotions to Yoon is at the beginning, please do yourself the favor, not anybody else, do yourself the favor and seek the proper help and attention. Still though, seeing another character go through maybe a similar emotional and psychological feeling that you are and nonetheless pushing forward is always a good thing to see, I think, for anybody. So my advice, if you are going to check this out, just because I had an amazing experience this way, although for you it might be in the reverse order, and in fact you might find Bastard to be better, but I would recommend reading Bastard first, then reading Sweet Home. Don't worry, I do plan on reading some of his other stories. I know he has one called Pigpen and then another one called Shotgun something, and I still do plan on checking out Tower of God. However, I heard it's like the One Piece of manhwa, so hearing that kind of, nah, in all seriousness though, I do plan on checking out all those stories, and I appreciate all the recommendations that you've been giving me in the comments. Short review, but I wanted to leave it straight and to the point, that way you could check it out and enjoy the rest of it. But nonetheless, if you are new to the channel, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, turn on the bell notifications. That way you're notified whenever a new video pops up on some of your favorite anime, manga, or whatever content. As always, this has been Hades. Hope everyone has a blessed rest of the day, and peace.